Hello and bah humbug. Welcome to the Kafta series, where I'll be showing you how to make traditional Middle Eastern kafta and kafta kebabs, as well as some other ways to utilize it, such as meatloaf, burgers, and meatballs. In a mixing bowl, add 1 pound of ground meat. You can really use any kind of meat you want. For this video, I'm using beef. Next, add 1 onion, small diced, 1 bunch of parsley, chopped, 2 teaspoons of salt, 1 teaspoon of pepper, half a teaspoon of allspice, 1 teaspoon of cinnamon, 1 teaspoon of sumac, and 4 tablespoons of breadcrumbs. And just a disclaimer here, I know my thumb looks dirty, but I can assure you it is not. I smashed it between 2 logs, so that's why it looks that way. Anyways, mix everything very well by hand. Then you'll want to make it into about 2-ounce sized flat little footballs. American footballs, not soccer balls. That's the meatball video. To cook them, just place them in a pan on medium-high heat for about 3 to 4 minutes on each side. Alternatively, you can also bake them in the oven. Here I've made some into more of a sausage link shape, and I'm going to bake them in the oven for about 15 to 20 minutes at 350 degrees. While they're baking, let's make some Lebanese style rice and pasta to go along with it, or as I like to call it, Lebanese rice-a-roni. In a large pot, add about a tablespoon of oil. Then add about a handful of noodles broken into thirds. You can use any kind of noodles you want, really. In fact, I like to use multiple kinds, which will give the final product several different textures. In this video, I'm using spaghetti, vermicelli, angel hair, and linguine. Now cut the heat on, and once they start to cook, start stirring them and keep stirring. Sorry for this shot, I bumped the camera and didn't notice. There, that's better. Continue stirring until all the pasta has browned. Then add 2 cups of rice and mix it well until all the rice is coated with oil and is starting to toast a bit. Then add 5 cups of water, 1 teaspoon of salt, and I also like to add a teaspoon of sumac as well, but it's not necessary. Give it 1 more stir, then cover it with a lid and reduce the heat down to low. After about 15 to 20 minutes, all the water should be absorbed and it should be ready to serve. Now let's take a small mixing bowl and add some of our rice, some sumac, some parsley, a little salt, and a pinch of pepper. Give that a toss, throw it on a plate, and we'll add our baked kafta to this one. Now back to our pan-fried ones. I'm just going to serve this with some pita bread and tahini sauce. I'll put a link in the top right corner to the tahini sauce. And last but not least, let's make some kebabs. Now I like to go pretty hefty with my kebabs, but you don't have to put as much meat as I did. Just put some of your favorite veggies on the skewer to hold them in place and throw them on the grill. For this video, I'm just using onion and some bell peppers. I usually cook mine for about an hour, turning them every 10 minutes or so. But that's just because I make them so big. If you make them smaller, they won't take near as long to cook. Now let's take the rest of our rice and throw it on a platter and walk out into the snow uphill both ways to get our kebabs. Look at those. Aren't they beautiful? In the next few days, I'll be putting out a kafta meatloaf video. Or if you're watching this from the future, here's a link to the video here. Hello and bah humbug. Welcome to episode 2 of the Kafta series. Last episode I showed you how to make the standard traditional kafta and kafta kebabs. This episode we're going to get a little creative and make an American style meatloaf with it. The first thing you'll need is some kafta. For a more detailed version of that recipe, click this video in the top right corner. But here's the rundown. Beef, onion, parsley, salt, pepper, allspice, cinnamon, sumac, and breadcrumbs. Now we'll take our kafta and add 2 eggs. Next, we'll add half a sleeve of saltines. Just crush them up in your hands straight into the bowl. Now set it aside and chop 1 green bell pepper, small diced. Add it to your kafta and mix well by hand. Now add it to your loaf pan and set it aside. Now let's take another bell pepper and this time slice it julienne. Now it wouldn't be an American style meatloaf without ketchup. So we're going to cover the top of our loaf with it, and next we'll start lining up our bell peppers right on top. Don't be afraid to double stack them. Now pop it into the oven at 350 degrees for about an hour and a half. And it also wouldn't be meatloaf without some mashed potatoes. So let's make some while our meatloaf is cooking. First peel 4 potatoes, then wash them and cut them into thirds. Add them to a small pot, then fill the pot with cold water and a couple of pinches of salt. Starting potatoes in cold water ensures even cooking of the potatoes from inside out, resulting in a smoother, less gummy texture. While the potatoes are cooking, Take a small saucepan and put it on low heat and add half a stick of butter. Now add a little bit of heavy cream. Once the cream starts to boil, cut off the heat, add some salt and some white pepper. If you don't have any white pepper, black pepper is fine. Set it aside and we'll come back to it later. Now let's go check on our potatoes. You want to be able to cut them with a knife without any resistance. And it looks like these are ready. We'll strain them in the sink and add them to the mixer. If you don't have a mixer, you can just use a whisk to mash them by hand. But using a mixer really helps give them that lovely whipped potatoes texture. Next, we'll add our cream, butter, salt, and pepper, and we'll use the paddle attachment on the mixer. Let the mixer run on medium for about 40 seconds. Then cut it up to high for about 10 seconds. Your potatoes should be nice and creamy at this point. They should literally melt in your mouth. Okay, it's been an hour and a half. Let's pull out our meatloaf. Look at that. Isn't that beautiful? Now let's plate up. Nothing fancy here, just some mashed taters in the middle and a nice thick slice of meatloaf right on top. I'm telling you, this stuff was so delicious. But if I'm being completely honest, I still like traditional kofta better. It's just a perfect combination of flavors, and adding the ketchup and bell peppers seem to overpower that flavor just a little bit. Don't get me wrong, it's still 10 times better than any meatloaf you get in a restaurant, but it's simply not better than kofta itself. In the next episode of this series, we'll be making kofta burgers. Be sure to check that out, or if you're watching from the future, here's a link in the top right corner right now. Hello and bah humbug. Welcome to episode 3 of the kofta series. Last episode I showed you how to make an American style meatloaf out of traditional kofta. This episode we'll be making cheeseburgers. The first thing you'll need, of course, is your kofta. For a more detailed version of that recipe, click the video in the top right corner. But here's a summary. Beef, onion, parsley, salt, pepper, allspice, cinnamon, sumac, and breadcrumbs. Now, it wouldn't be a cheeseburger without some fries, so before we make our burger, let's get some going. I've already cut one potato and gotten my oil up to 350 degrees, so I'm just going to drop them in there and let them cook while we work on our burger. Whenever deep frying, use a big pot and never fill it more than halfway. This will prevent it from overboiling. Now let's start on our burger. First things first, I'm going to toast the bun in some butter until it's nice and brown. Then set it aside and let's get the patty going. You can make the patty any size you like, but I've opted for a nice big 8-ounce burger because I plan on splitting this one. Plus, bigger burgers just look prettier on camera. I've also opted to cook it on the stove because it was negative 10 degrees outside when I recorded this, and I didn't feel like firing up the grill. Either way, you want to cook it for about 4 minutes, and then give it a flip. Add your cheese and let it cook another 4 minutes. This time I'm just using good old American cheese, but I could see this kofta pairing really well with some nice Swiss, gorgonzola, or even a smoked Gouda. The cheese is really up to you. Now let's take our bun and get it ready. Just add whatever you like on your burgers. For me, it's always mayo, lettuce, green leaf or butter leaf, not iceberg, tomato, chef's tip, always salt and pepper your tomatoes, and red onion. What's yours? Let me know in the comments. Okay, now it's time to add the burger, throw the bun on top, and let's check on our fries. They look good to me, golden and starting to brown. Now let's transfer them to a bowl and season them. Now you can go with just salt and pepper, or even just salt, but I like to use my special Cajun blend on them. It really takes your fries to the next level. I'll throw a link to that video in the top right corner, where I show you how to do all kinds of things with it, including blackened fish, chicken marinade, compound butter, and even Cajun boiled peanuts. Be sure to check out that video, but here's the summary. Smoked paprika, cayenne, onion powder, black pepper, white pepper, garlic powder, dried oregano, and dried thyme. I never put salt in any of my seasoning blends because I like to go heavy with the seasoning sometimes, so I always salt separately to avoid oversalting. And there you have it, kofta burger with Cajun fries. In the next episode of this series, we'll be making kofta meatballs. Be sure to check that out. Or if you're watching from the future, here's a link to it in the top right corner. Hello and bah humbug. Welcome to the fourth and final episode of the Kafta series. Last episode I showed you how to make a cheeseburger out of traditional kafta, and this episode we'll be making meatballs. The first thing you'll need is, of course, kafta. For a more detailed version of that recipe, click the video on the top right corner. But here's a summary. Beef, onion, parsley, salt, pepper, allspice, cinnamon, sumac, and breadcrumbs. Now preheat your oven to 355 degrees. Next, in a small bowl, add half a cup of heavy cream and a quarter cup of breadcrumbs. Make sure all the breadcrumbs are submerged in the cream, then let it soak for about 15 minutes. Once the breadcrumbs have absorbed all the cream, add it to your kafta. Then add 1 egg and mix well by hand. Once everything is incorporated, wash your hands and start making them into 1-ounce balls, placing them on a non-stick or greased sheet pan. Now place them in the oven for about 20 minutes. After 20 minutes, they should be ready. You can eat them now as is, or you can take your favorite barbecue sauce and give them a toss in that. Stick some picks in them and they're ready to serve. And that was the final episode of the Kafta series. If you'd like to see me make something else out of kafta, let me know in the comments. Also, if you'd like to support the channel, you can for as little as $1 a month on Patreon. Link in the description. Thanks for watching, everyone. Goodbye, good night, and as always, bah humbug.